Erica with the Star Wars 20, and we're here at Star Wars Read Day at the Rancho Cucamonga Library with author Michael Kogge, who's written a bunch of Star Wars books, but really recently the junior novelization of The Force Awakens. Welcome.
Thanks, Erica.
We also have junior reporter Anna here, and she's going to have a couple of questions for Michael first. So go ahead, Anna.
How long did it take you to write the book?
How long did it take me to write the book? Well, I actually had a really strict deadline. That's a very good question. I had a really strict deadline on this one. I had to do it in 3.5 weeks.
Really?
3.5 weeks. Yeah.
Is that the fastest you've ever written a book?
Yes. Yeah. But you have to do what, that was the deadline, and I accepted it. So there was also, that's when I had to turn in my first draft. Then there's a period of revision where I basically take the book. The editor looks at it. She or he gives me notes. I make those changes. We go through another couple of drafts where we kind of fine-tune everything, and then it goes to print or ebook. So that can take a couple of months.
So, wow. That's why you only had 3 weeks, huh? You have to get it started.
Beginning. Yeah, you had to get right into it.
You have another question?
Okay. What other Star Wars books have you written?
I have written I've co-authored, I'm one of the co-authors for Star Wars Absolutely Everything You Know, and that's a DK book. It's a huge kind of encyclopedic book. I've also written the Star Wars Rebels series, the junior novel series for Disney Press, including The Rebellion Begins. And I've done Batman vs. Superman, Crossfire, which is a prequel to that movie. Prequel novel, and I've done some books for J.K. Rowling's Fantastic Beasts for Scholastic. Those are some. I have some other books too. I also have Empire of the Wolf, which is my original graphic novel. It's about ancient Rome and werewolves. So if you like that kind of stuff, it's a great graphic novel. It's Empire of the Wolf.
So a lot of mythology, fantasy, science fiction.
Absolutely. Mythology, really. Mythology is, I think that's a core of Star Wars. It has just a great mythology. And that's what I've always been attracted to as a writer.
That's awesome.
What is your favorite Star Wars Rebels character to write about?
Very good question. Well, who's my favorite Star Wars Rebels character? I think writing about, I liked on the villain side, I liked Agent Callus. Do you know who he is? Yeah. Oh, we have a little friend here. Hey, and I really like Chopper too. Okay, I really like you. Good.
He heard us
so
talking
nice to
about
see
Rebels.
you. We were just talking about it. So you're my favorite Rebels character. You know that?
I think you kind of have to say that to Chopper, don't you? Or he's going to give you a little bit of attitude.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming by, Chopper.
Thanks, Chopper.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna.
So as you go through all your Star Wars books, what was the first one?
The first Star Wars book, I've been writing for Star Wars actually for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? I wrote a piece for one of the role-playing game supplements. I wrote a source piece. I really, I love the universe, and I'm a fiction writer too. So the first Star Wars fiction book I wrote was Star Wars Rebels book, and I did a four-book chapter book series for them. Okay. And then I also did this book called The Rebellion Begins.
So when you
Rise of the Rebels was the name of the first book.
Yeah. When you started, is this where you thought it would go? Did you think it would be this long? Did you hope it would be this long, maybe?
Yeah, I'm really always honored and humbled to be able to do whatever book I get to do in Star Wars, because the audience is so wide, and I never take it for granted, and I never know, when it might not be there, or I just hope that it's always going to be there, because I've always been there for it. Yeah. So but you never know as a writer. I do my own projects too, and that's what I love doing also.
Yeah. When you do the adaptation process, what's it like? How much do you have to get previous info on the Rebels series or the Force Awakens? Did you get little tidbits? How much creative freedom do you still maintain? How much are you directed?
So I usually am given the script. Sometimes I'm given a couple of images, or I get to read the script with the Force Awakens. I had to take a lot of notes, and I from there, I guess I'm trusted enough to know that the basic the building blocks of Star Wars. I'm going to include them, and I know what a planet what the different planets are. I have a knowledge of the vocabulary of Star Wars, because there's a specific vocabulary that you need to do to establish your story. And I know like the voices of the characters, but I also think what I really concentrate on is beyond all that, I try to get the spirit of Star Wars, the fun, the mythology, the emotion, those moments in Star Wars where you hear the music. Like when you're writing a book, you don't have a soundtrack, you have it in your head. And when you have a big moment where everything slows down or the character's doing something heroic, I really try to elevate that moment and make it something special. And I try to do that with words, because that's my music.
Well, and sometimes with the book format, you get a little extra leeway, right, than the film. You can spend a little bit longer on a slower part, add in a lot of spots in the junior novelization. It seemed like you were able to just add a few more lines of dialogue or give us kind of what someone was thinking that we can't see in the film.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about, novels and literature and fiction, printed fiction, is that you can, it's not the same as a movie. You can't do the quick cutting back and forth. All that doesn't work in a novel. The reader would totally lose the train of thought. In a movie, you can do that, but in a book, you can. It's easier and it flows more to get the internal monologue, the internal dialogue of the character, his thoughts, his feelings, her emotions, and focusing on that. And for the junior novels, I really tried to. For The Force Awakens, I've tried to focus on Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo, telling the story from that perspective, because it's a YA middle grade audience that are reading those books. So those are the most essential characters, and I think that's the point of view that you should be trying to establish for your reader. The adult novelization does it somewhat differently. Adults can read the junior novel and get a completely different retelling of the film and than they would from the adult novel or even watching the film. So there are many ways that you can experience The Force Awakens.
So when you're working, do you work with the author for the adult novelization, or is that a completely separate process?
Usually it's pretty separate. I don't communicate with them. And that's the way I want to give my spin on the story too. Yeah. I of course admire just about everybody. Alan Dean Foster I know Alan. He's such a good guy, and I had access to his novel when I was writing mine. So he very much an inspiration, and it's a privilege to be working with him. But we communicated as fellow authors. We didn't communicate as like, this is what you're going to do, this is what I'm going to do. There wasn't a collaboration on that.
It's not like story grouping.
Yeah, no.
So, and you really have a different audience. You got to have focus on some different
Absolutely.
things. So you give us some nice pieces in that book about we love fans at Star Wars read, so it's okay. But you give us like more info what happens to Poe. Answer a lot of questions that adults and kids have when they're watching the movie, like what's going on in Rey and Kylo's heads during that interrogation scene. And was that really fun?
Yeah, so you remember that scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really wrote that scene out. I expanded it a little bit, and I give you Kylo, and I do it from Rey's perspective. Yeah. And I have Kylo kind of his tendrils going into her mind, and it's the first time she really experiences the Force being used against her, and she reacts, and she's able to push him back. And I don't know any more than anybody else does about who Rey is. And yet I think with the basics of what I was given about her, and told about her through the script, I tried to find a way into her character to show that she had the strength and kind of the natural innate talent to push him back and figure out. She figured out who he was and what motivated him, and that's what she used against him, I think. And he's somebody who wants power, and Kylo Ren is also somebody who is afraid. Yeah. And she was able to twist both those back at him.
Well, and really telling that he thought he could use the fear for her, but that it's not her, that's him. That was a great part. Another part I really enjoyed when I was reading that is at the end with R2 and the map. And it's one of the questions in the movie, you're like, well, why didn't R2 just say something earlier? He's like sitting over there, and you kind of gave us a little bit of story. Well, there's some other dialogue that kind of cues R2 into the fact that, oh, I maybe can help. So was that all you? Was that a question you had when you looked at the script?
Yeah, absolutely. I wondered, like, oh, R2 has the map. Why didn't he give it? But when you're watching the film, those aren't the questions you have the first time you watch it. And the brilliance of The Force Awakens and what J.J. Abrams is able to do, he just sends you on this ride, and you just keep going. It doesn't stop. You don't question anything. When you're that close to the script and the story, I know all the strengths of that script and that movie, and I know it's kind of the points where it glosses over. And so my job as a writer, I think, is to make sure when you're reading the book, you find out what the logic could be.
Yeah.
Right. And with R2, he's been turned off for a long time, and he doesn't have all the map. You know, he needs BB-8 to kind of piece it together. So. That's what I tried to do with that scene.
Yeah. So that might be a good reason for some of our readers who might say, "Oh, well, I've already watched the movie. Do I need to read the book about the movie?" Is yes, right? Is to get
I would. And there's a scene that I really like in the book that I wrote, where after Chewbacca, after his partner dies, he's been with this man for 40 years as a friend, 50 years as a friend. And I would think that he would have had emotional reaction to it. So I wrote a scene, what happens to Chewie after his friend is killed. And it's him running back to the Millennium Falcon, and he's enraged, and he uses his Wookiee claws, right?
Yeah.
And Wookiees aren't supposed to do that. And he hears basically a voice in his head, and it's not something from the Force, it's just, what would his friend do? What would Han do? He would rescue the kids, and so he goes back to the Falcon, and he goes and he finds Rey and Finn, and he saves them from the planet blowing up. And I thought that was a really kind of great moment for the junior novel that doesn't need to be in the film, but it adds something to the book.
Yeah. Well, I think, as Star Wars fans, we maybe would be happy for like a 12-hour Force Awakens show, but
we want the extended editions, don't we?
It might not work that way. And so that's a great way to do that and just look at it from a different way. So if our fans want to learn more about you or your books or order your books, or where should they go? Where can they find you?
Yeah, they can go to michaelkogge.com. That's MichaelKogge.com. I'm also on Twitter at Michael Kogge, the same, and then I'm also on Facebook too. And you can check out all my books: Empire of the Wolf, Fantastic Beasts, Batman vs. Superman, Star Wars. I also do the Incredibles book series of Star Wars models, and they give you. I do the X-wing. I'm doing the Episode 8 A-wing. I can we can mention that.
Yeah, those are amazingly detailed. I just can't imagine.
Yeah, they're tricky to do because you want to get everything right.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it's technical writing at points, but they're a lot of fun.
So, well, great. Well, thank you for joining us, Michael. If you want to follow us on the Star Wars 20, make sure you check us out at our YouTube channel and on Twitter and Facebook and all those good places. And we'll post a link below, and check out Michael and all his books.
Thank you. Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Star Wars 20.